Hey, welcome to my channel. I read some more books. So I'm trying to do these videos a little faster. I looked at the last video I posted and it was like 10 days ago. I'm like, gee, it's already been 10 days. I wanted to do one like once a week, but I have a problem. As you can see, these books here are all the books I'm currently reading. I can't just read one book. I have like 15 books on my currently reading list on Goodreads. I just have a problem. I just come in here, look at all these beautiful books and can't ever decide what to read. And I'll be halfway through a book and I'll go grab something just because it sounds interesting. I'll even reread a book just because, I don't know, I'm crazy. So the first book I read was War and Peace. I can't even say it with a straight face. I'm joking. Totally joking. I found this for like $2 at a store, Barnes & Noble, obviously, Barnes & Noble. It was like, what is it normally, $10 or something? $14. It had a sticker on it for $2. I'm like, okay, I'll grab it. So I asked my wife, how fast do you think I could read this? War and Peace. And she said, you probably read that in like a week, right? A week? She has way more faith in me than I do. I feel like this would take me 6 months to read this thing. Look at the print on it. It's so small. It's just crazy. But I do actually want to read it. I've never read any Tolstoy, so I've got this and Anna Karenina, and I do want to read them. So I don't know why I decided to start the video like that. What am I doing? I have no idea. How do I have 50 subscribers already? I don't know. You guys are all so nice in the comments. Every time someone reads a comment or leaves a comment, it just makes my day. It's really cool. The actual first book I read was Things We Lost in the Fire, Mariana Enriquez. So I am learning to speak Spanish. I've been doing Spanish. I mean, I took Spanish in high school, but I've been every day doing a little bit trying to learn Spanish. Where I live, there's a lot of Spanish speaking people, and I just think it's a cool language, and I always have a deep admiration for people that can speak English when it's not their first language, like people that come here and learn English. And I just wish I knew how to speak Spanish, so I'm trying. But I got on a kick a while back about reading Spanish authors, like Spanish speaking. She's from Argentina. Reading like Spanish speaking horror authors. So here I got a couple of things here. So I got The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias. I read this last year. Really good. It had a lot of Spanish in it, which I didn't understand most of it, but it was a really cool little horror story. And then I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I did Mexican Gothic. I don't think this really had any Spanish in it, but it was a nice, beautifully written little horror novel. I read this one out loud to my wife, so that was cool. And then I actually have Things We Lost in the Fire and Our Share of Night. So this one is a collection of short stories. And I'll just start by saying I loved it. It was so good. This was such a good, it's only 200 pages, and I blew through it in like 2 days. It was so good. Normally I like to read short stories, just 1 or 2 at a time, and then, you know, like a week, like 1 or 2 a week, and kind of move on. One of these behind me is actually a short story collection that I've been reading for a long time, just because I don't always pick it up, you know. But then this is actually a novel, so I do want to read this. Look at that. That's a thick novel. And, oh look, it's got a blurb from the author of one of the books I just showed here. So anyway, all that to say, this was like maybe 10 short stories. It was pretty rough. There's a lot of just dark stuff. Argentina, I mean, growing up in Argentina must have been crazy. The drugs, the violence, the prostitution. Her stories are all very dark and deal with like children and homeless like deformed children and homeless children and sexually abused children and all kinds of stuff. It's really, really rough. There's definitely some highlights. I won't spoil any of the stories in here. I would highly recommend it. It's a very, very quick, easy, fun read. Just very dark. It's got like some supernatural, some realistic horror, so it dives into both. And I liked when she did both. Each time I really liked it. There's one thing that I noticed in almost every one of the stories in here. It is a female who is just not into her partner anymore. She talks a lot of crap about the male partners. So she must have had some really crappy relationships in her life. Seemed to be a theme that went through like more than half of the stories in here. The male counterpart would be a total asshole. So I think my favorite story was about, it's so weird. Every story was quite different. My favorite one, I think it's called Green, Yellow, Red. And it's like a chat window. So when you're there, it's green. When you're away, it's yellow or orange. And when you're offline, it's red. So it's about a man who has severe depression and locks himself in his room and never comes out. And the only time he interacts with anybody is through this chat window. It was a really interesting story. And we've all been depressed like that. That's a very common thing in some other, like Japanese, I think, has a bit of that stereotype of people locking themselves in their house because they just can't deal with how stressful life is. They have a lot more pressure in their society to succeed, I think, maybe. She talks about that in the story. So there's a story in here that is Lovecraftian, which totally came out of nowhere. There's only one, at least that I caught, and it was really good. And it really caught me off guard. I did not expect Lovecraft horror to be in this. It was really, really good. Highly recommend. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's hard to give things 5 stars, but couldn't recommend this anymore. It's so good. So I got the entire, I'll put it right here, the entire Cradle series for free. Somebody that I follow just said, hey, you can go on Kindle right now and all the Cradle books are free. I think it was when he was releasing the last book. So I did. I went and got them all for free and read the first one just a while back. The first book is called Unsold. It was so good. It was really good. It was right up my alley. I've never read anything like that before. I guess like progression fantasy, where your character starts very weak and becomes more powerful over time, kind of like a video game. So the book's been talked about a lot, and I'm glad I read it. I've already started reading the second book because I'm reading it on my phone, and sometimes it's nice. Like maybe my son is sleeping and I'm in the dark. I can just read that book on my phone and not have to worry about having a light to read a physical novel. So really, really liked Cradle so far. Starting off very weak and then through hard work becoming more powerful, not having like natural talent at anything or just hard work. And I can respect that. As obviously a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I kind of had a lot of natural talent when I was a kid. I seemed to always sort of be good at things. And then people that would work harder than me would win. And it taught me, like you can't just coast on natural talent. You have to put in the work. And I did. I started working. I got a much stronger work ethic through martial arts. So I really connected with the main character in Cradle, Lyndon. And I'm just so curious to see where he's going to go. Because like when you start the book, he's so weak that he can't even beat a little girl. If he's like, I don't know, he's like 14 or 15 or something. And this like 7 or 8-year-old girl can beat him up. That's how weak he is. So I'm just curious to see the scale of this whole series. He's going to be fighting like demons and gods. And yeah, really interesting. Really, really interesting stuff. There's just a couple of graphic novels that I read. So I've been wanting to read these for so long. I have all 4 books Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. And so I just read the first two. This is volume 1 and 2. It was so good. I've never read any Daredevil that I didn't like. He's by far one of my favorite characters in all of comics. He's just so interesting. I've said it before, I really like the sort of religious theme in things, and Daredevil struggles with his Catholicism. It's very interesting to me. Like, how do you be a Catholic who dresses like a devil to scare people? It's very, very interesting. This series basically starts out with Daredevil stopping a crime, but he accidentally kills someone. So he's completely distraught that he accidentally killed someone. It's like, you know, his whole point is he's trying to help people and never wanted to kill anybody, and it was an accident. But it was his fault, and he took a life. So he decides to not be Daredevil anymore. He just kind of gives it up. And let's see, right here, I think this is volume 1. So look at the art. It's just so good. So it's Matt Murdock just struggling with his identity, you know. Meanwhile, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, is the mayor of New York City. So it's like the most evil, corrupt dude ever becomes mayor. It's very cool. Volume 2 deals a lot more with Elektra trying to figure out what's going on with Matt and help him become Daredevil again. And he does, of course. Obviously, it's Daredevil, right? Chip Zdarsky, man, he's very hot right now. He's doing Batman and some other things that I'm really excited to read. I've read some Zdarsky before, but this was the first one of his like series that I'm following, so it was really good. So I won't go too much further in the video. I could talk about Cradle for a long time, but I've only read the first book, so it's hard for me to, you know, dive too deep in it, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that hasn't read it. I think even if you can't get them for free, they're really cheap. They're just a couple bucks maybe. So check it out for sure. And Daredevil, so these are the oversized hardcovers, but he just came out with, or soon to be, an omnibus. It's going to be like the first 3, maybe all 4 of the books combined into one big book, which if I would have waited and not bought these, I definitely would have just bought the Omni. But I do really like these Marvel hardcovers. They're very well made. I'll take the slip jacket off of this one. And the artwork by Marco Cicchetto, I believe is how you say his name, is absolutely phenomenal. It is some of the best art. Let me try to just find a quick panel here so you can see what I'm talking about. It's so good. I could flip through the whole book here. But here is like the way Daredevil sees the world. Anyway, the art is really, really phenomenal. And you've got this police officer also who's trying to stop Daredevil because he's the only cop that's not corrupt. And that's kind of a common theme in these type of books. I've read so much Batman in my life. That's a pretty common theme where there's maybe one cop that's not corrupt while all the rest of them are. So I'm curious to see where that's going to go. I do know that Elektra becomes Daredevil because I've seen, you know, like the covers of comics and stuff where she is Daredevil. So I'm just really curious how that happens and what that's going to be like. I'll shut up now. Thank you guys, everybody. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing. See ya.